Okay. I don't want to, if anybody else pops on, then they pop on. And since it's a small crowd, you guys obviously stop if you got questions. Assume, Bob, you'll probably be able to tell me stuff I don't know. But all right, here we go. So, considering the audience, but I'm recording, so I'm going to go ahead and go through all this stuff that you guys probably already know. So, you guys have, I know you've all participated in a radio net. So radio net is basically any time that you've got 3 or more stations communicating, on a common frequency, and they're following organized procedures, and you're directed by a net control station. So the reason we do this is to have kind of efficient use of the frequency and to ensure that traffic is handled in priority. So if there's urgent matters, you can handle those immediately, and you can kind of effectively manage the traffic, the standard traffic that's going back and forth. So, in short, the net is basically you're functioning like a team. You're working towards a common goal, which is effective net operation. So there's 2 types of nets. There's the directed net and an open net. What's a net control station? So net control station acts like the moderator or the traffic cop. They initiate the group communication. They start the net. They ensure all participants are following the standard procedures, and they determine when other stations speak and who they speak to on the net. So the net control station, opens and closes the net. They direct all the net activities for, efficiency of communication. They choose the frequency. They maintain a log, which records participation, movement of messages, and they should always know which stations are on the net or off the net. They can also appoint alternate net control stations, 1 or more. They determine when to do continuity checks, and they direct whether or not a net is a directed net or an open net or a free net. The alternate net control is there to assist. You could say almost they're the assistant net control. They'll assume the duties of the net control if they have problems with their station, or the NCS can hand off, for a portion of the net to the alternate. They can, if directed by the NCS, echo transmissions off to somebody else. That'd be probably more applicable in a simplex situation. And they also maintain a duplicate log. I threw this in here. Some places have it and some places don't. So the net manager is the person who kind of supervises the nets for a situation or a club. Basically, if you've got kind of a recurring net, or you've got a net that's being organized by an organization or something like that, you'd have a net manager. The net manager in general is kind of who schedules when the net happens. They usually keep the schedule of who's the net control station, who's the alternate. If you're trying to have kind of a net that's going based on a set, set of participants, that you roll call through, then the net manager would be, making that list of folks who are expected to be on the net. So the net structure. So you have the net opening, right? Where part of the net opening needs to be identifying the net control station and the alternate net control station. Generally, there's an announcement. If this is like a regular, date, time, frequency of the net, the purpose and the format of the net. So for instance, if we have, a conversational net, we just say, hey, this is an open net and we're just talking. If it's, an ARES net for a specific purpose, such as, situational awareness or, a public service event, then we'd say this is a directed net and the purpose is whatever. Then you're going to have a roll call. So you're going to call for the stations to check in. In general, what you hear on like a weeknight net is it's just open, and you just say, hey, whoever's here, call in. You might do that in a certain order. You might say mobile and portable stations first, or officers first, and then fixed stations go last. In other situations, you might have a roster of who's expected to be on the net. So you go down through that roster and say, Joe, are you there? Sam, are you there? So there's a couple different formats that you could go with. Then you'll have whatever your net business is. That could be quick, just this is a business meeting, we're making announcements and we're done. It could be, a longer net for a public service event or something else that takes many, many hours. And then you have a closing at the end. And you might, throughout the course of step 3, do multiple roll calls to verify people are still there. You'll have, late check-ins and that kind of thing. So that's not to say that you wouldn't roll call more than once, but you always do it at least once.
If I can add one more thing here.
Yeah.
A lot of times also when you're doing a roll call, especially if it's for a MCON style net, you may call for emergency or priority traffic at the beginning in case somebody actually has something urgent to get through to the net.
Yep, that's a great point, and called that out in some of the other sections too. But yeah, that would definitely be kind of your first your first call out would be anybody with emergency or priority. Great, yeah. All right, so 2 modes of net operation. So you have a directed net in which no station other than the net control station can communicate with any other station without getting permission first. So basically the net control can talk to anybody, and anybody else can talk to the net control. But if anybody wants to talk to anybody, then they have to ask net control first. And that's how you manage the traffic. Like we said, the net control is the traffic cop. And so if, station A wants to talk to station B, then the net control can approve it. With a free net, or I usually just call this an open net or a conversational net, then any station can talk to any other station. You might still have a net control there to help kind of, have some guardrails up and kind of keep the conversation going and take the check-ins, but anybody can talk to anybody. There's no restriction. So why do we want a directed net? We want to prioritize resource requests. We want to be able to quickly handle multiple things that are going on, and you want to be able to log everything. If there's a lot going on, if there's people talking on, on top of each other, you're not going to be able to prioritize the stations or the contacts that need to be prioritized. You're not, the net control station is not going to be able to stay on top and keep track of everything that's going on. So that's why you need it to be, in an organized, directed fashion. So if you're an operator on a directed net, you should respond only to the net control station and get permission before contacting anyone else directly. Listen and respond promptly when called. So that means that if you're in a directed net, that you should be monitoring your radio continuously while you're on the net, while you're checked into the net, because you don't want to leave the air without checking out. And the problem is if the net control station doesn't know that you've left, then they're going to assume that you're available. And so they need to know who's there and who's not to know if you're going to be reachable. If you're not reachable, then then there's a problem with your station and people are going to be trying to track you down. So another big thing is anytime, and this probably applies to all nets, not just directed nets, but you should pause and listen before you transmit. And that is importantly so that you're leaving small gaps in the transmission. If you're also you shouldn't be talking or just going on for that long, but it's also good to pause, release the key on your mic for a couple of seconds and then start again so that somebody can break in. So you always want to, wait. So you're not, and the other thing is if you pause and listen, then you're not going to double on top of somebody, right? We've all heard that on the air that people start transmitting at the same time and 2 people are going, they're talking for a minute straight, on top of each other. So like I was saying before, you want to leave that pause. You want to leave that pause before you start talking after, if somebody, the net control calls you, you pause for a second. If you're talking for a minute, then you want to, take a pause in between when you're taking a breath, when you're taking a second to think about something or look at your papers or whatever. You want to take your thumb off the mic so that somebody else can break in. And if there's emergency traffic, someone needs to be able to break in. And the most common thing I've seen is that most people would say you say break, and then your call sign. I don't know if Bob will say otherwise, but that's generally what's recommended is you say break, and your call sign. And that means you need to break into the net.
Yep. Sounds good.
Yep. And you would want to just give your call sign, and that lets net control know, hey, I need to recognize you immediately. Something's going on, something important's going on. So your call sign might either be, your actual, call sign, or it could be a tactical call sign. Either way, right? And obviously, like even on a regular net, right? I mean, this would be the process. If you have emergency traffic at any time, you say break in your call sign, and that lets the net control know that, hey, you need attention immediately. Or your Kanye. So this is just some other stuff about, if you're working on a directed net, generally we're supporting some kind of, emergency event or some kind of public service event. And we want to make sure that everybody's going to be understood. So one of the most important things is to use plain language. So everybody likes 10 codes or, other jargon, but you shouldn't be using those on a net because it should be commonly understood by everybody on the net what you mean. But I will caveat that pro words, which I got a section on later, procedure words are okay because they're generally recognized and agreed upon by everybody. Another thing is you kind of want to avoid, obviously we'll need technical terminology for some things, but you don't want to throw out useless technical terminology or excessive technical terminology, because that's just going to make it harder for some of the people on the net, right? You want to be kind of like as simple and plain language as possible. And then also you just want to be brief and simple phrases. And that just helps the listener, right? When you use short transmissions, simple phrases, it makes it easier for the person on the other end to understand exactly what you meant and copy it down, quickly. And I'm just talking. You guys can stop me with questions. All right. So just circling back on what the net control station's doing, they're maintaining the discipline. They're setting the example. They're prioritizing what kind of messages come through in the requests, and they're handling the traffic as efficiently as possible. The other important thing, like I said before, is to log everything that happens. And when I say log, you write it down. You can't rely on your memory. Whatever happens, especially in a public service or emergency net, like that information all needs to be captured. You need to know who's on the net. You need to know what kind of messages went back and forth. Whether it's an informal log or, an actual ICS form, you need to be keeping track of everything that's happening in these kind of, directed net situations. All right. So I cribbed this from the Fairfax folks from when they did the situational awareness net for the inauguration. So, and this kind of talks about, this kind of demonstrates exactly what the net control station does, kind of called out the functions of the net control station earlier. So the net control station basically opens the net. He tells you which frequency you're operating on and about that frequency. And then what happens if that frequency isn't available, right? So they would set, if we're on the primary and the primary goes down, or they say there's a problem with the primary, then we'll flip over to the backup. But that right away. So that's basically identification of the NCS and the net and what your frequency plan is. Then, and you'll see this, like they're saying specifically, this is a directed net, right? So that cues you in to what the behavior needs to be on the net, what the format is. And then they explain what the purpose is, right? This was, check-ins from the green zone or whatever it was at the time. But it kind of explains there it is, the red and green zones. And then they kind of roll into the roll call. In this case, right, there wasn't a list beforehand. They're just taking call-ins from various amateurs, but they've already noted who they want to be calling in. They want people who are in the red and green zones to do the check-ins. Any questions on that?
Just going to say, you also usually want to have a category for people who aren't involved if it's a non-event net, just to let people say, because hands like to talk, and otherwise somebody's going to break in anyways.
Yeah. So I got a bunch of slides here on pro words. So so for anybody who doesn't know what that is, so a procedure word is meant to kind of in one word or a short phrase take the place of a long sentence. And I kind of group together pro words and introductory phases because they kind of function the same way. And it basically makes it more efficient and more accurate because everybody's using the same words or phrases to mean the same intention instead of just kind of having a long sentence to kind of like mosey your way to your point. And specifically for like message handling, and I didn't get quite into that. There's a whole bunch of, traffic control message handling stuff that's a little more in the weeds than I kind of got into here. But you can also use them to, indicate the beginning or the end of a message and, the beginning and end of like a line and different parts of the message. And, there's a whole procedure for going through an ICS form and sending that over the air, which is pretty painful. But for this purpose, I just wanted to put together kind of the words and phrases you'd need to just kind of talk through different activities that you might need to report in. So a lot of you guys know this one from the nets. The best way when you're calling in, right, is to say, this is, and your call. Generally, so some of the nets, they'll even tell you to, key up the transmitter, release your thumb, key it up again, and then say, this is call sign. But that's helpful because that gives the person listening like half a second to cue in on the fact that there's a call sign coming. And it also kind of helps that you've already to a little bit less doubling too.
What I often end up doing is I'll say this is and then release. And that way I can hear if I'm doubling up with somebody and then continue with N2 KGO, blah, 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 no traffic or whatever the net requires.
Yeah. And then there's there's difference between over and out. So over means I finished speaking and now it's your turn. So that's kind of, if you're going back and forth, you would say I'm, over. When you're out, that means that you're kind of done speaking, that you don't expect anybody to say anything else after that. Go ahead just means I'm ready for you to start speaking. I'm ready to copy whatever you're saying. And then copy means I've received and understood. So, and you can use the word correct in 3 different ways, which I don't know if that's particularly efficient, but you can say, I need to make a correction. So that'd be correction. Basically saying I made an error and I need to like make a correction starting with, such and such word in the sentence. Correct with a question mark is saying, can you confirm that I was correct in something I just said? Or you can say correct like an affirmative, like, yeah, you're good to go. This one's pretty big when you're trying to send across like a name that has a complex spelling, or you're trying to send across and I've done some exercises on this that are painful, like the model number or some other kind of information, right? About like a generator or something. It's got a weird name and it's got a weird model number. To be able to kind of really efficiently state that verbally over the air, you want to start by saying, all right, I'm going to spell this, right? So the person is prepared. They're mentally listening for letters to come after. And then if you're going to give them numbers, you want to say figure or figures. So that means that they're expecting to write like digits down. If you're going to send like an initial, like just a letter, right? You say initial. So they know that they're expecting to see like a single letter after that. And then a mixed group kind of cues someone up. And this is especially like you got a model number or something that, that you're going to hear some letters and digits kind of all smushed together is like my next phrase that's coming. All right. Wait means wait. And then another thing is that if you don't say yes or no, it's better to say affirmative or negative because it's a little bit longer. It's a little bit more clear. And another thing is like, if you want someone to repeat something, then just say again after whatever word. Um, all right. You guys hopefully all remember your ITU phonetics. I learned them a long time ago when I was working at a call center. Very useful for lots of things, not just ham radio.
We're hams. We don't need real phonetics.
So don't use the cop phonetics that are a bunch of random first names or whatever. There's actually I actually saw this is a tangent I shouldn't be doing on a training, but I saw like an article recently where they actually did a study where they compared like the ITU phonetics to like different forms of phonetics that were like, especially even like foreign language phonetics or whatever that are closer. And they found that it was like not any more efficient. That as long as everybody has a standard and they're all in the same standard, it works just as well as anything else. So this is a standard that we have. So, definitely when you're working on the directed net on an event, you want to make sure that you're using the phonetics, right? When you call in with your call sign, that you're saying your call sign with the phonetics. If you need to send letters or figures, like talked about, that you're using the phonetics, right? So it's very clear. B, Bravo sounds a lot like T, Tango. That's almost impossible to hear the difference if, you don't have like a very, very clear signal. And don't say like M like Mancy. It's M like Mike. I've heard that one. So what I was going to do, thought I would have a little more people, but I wanted to run through an exercise with everybody who is on right now to pretend like we were weird. To pretend like we are, we're on an actual net. Basically what I'm thinking, I'll just run through this and then everybody, can check in with their with your call sign and what did I ask for here? Call sign slowly, your name and location. And then I got a couple little sample traffics that you guys can try to pass between each other. Cool. Blah, blah, blah. Am I going to really read this? Okay. This is so-and-so for the net control station for the ARES DC directed net training, blah, blah, blah. We're on the internet. If the internet screws up, we'll get on the repeater. So this is a directed net to receive check-ins from trainees. When checking into the net, please provide your call sign phonetically and slowly, your name and your location. So are there any stations with emergency or priority traffic? Are there any stations with traffic or announcements? Are there any portable, mobile, or stations on emergency power? All right. All other stations wishing to check into the net, call now.
Net control. This is November 2, Kilo, Golf, Oscar, Bob, Northeast, DC.
This is Kilo, Charlie 3, Hotel Mike, Yankee, Phil, Fort Totten, DC.
This is November 4, United, oh my God, Charlie, Quebec, in Mount Pleasant, Washington, D.C.
So net control recognizes N2KGO, KC3HMY, and N4UCQ. So what I was, I guess we'll pick who's each one because I think I only have 3 on here. I'm not sure. So basically, I'll designate each of you guys. So basically, kind of mimicking if we're on some kind of event and I'm playing net control and I'll pick which thing each of you guys are going to have to be. And you would, whoever the guy on the left is of the arrow needs to contact net control and say, hey, I need to talk to whoever is on the right side of the arrow. So any volunteers to be medical or logistics in the first example? Y'all on mute.
I learned by hearing, so I'll let the other 2 people go first.
I mean, I'll do medical. I don't care.
All right. So Phil just volunteered to be logistics. So,
Yeah,
okay.
whatever.
I should have come up with better examples, but it was something to start with.
Listen, if you assign it, we'll do it, honestly.
Okay. So Bob is medical and Phil is logistics. So,
So are we using tactical calls here, or
yeah, let's just
we
do
didn't really talk
tactical.
about that a bit?
Yeah, that's true. I kind of skipped over the whole tactical call signs thing. So let's just pretend like we're doing tactical, and then we'll explain what those are later, I guess.
Okay. Net control. This is medical request to go direct with logistics.
Medical. This is net control. You can speak to logistics.
Logistic. This is medical. How do you read?
Loud and clear. Medical, this is logistics.
Just want to relay a message that we are going to need more fuel for the generator. Over.
More fuel for the generator, we copy, and we will get back to you on that. Medical, this is logistics. Over.
Thank you very much. Back to you, net control from medical and to KGO.
All right. Evan, you want to try one?
Sure.
All right. So how about Evan, you be search and rescue, and I don't know, Phil, you can be medical.
Net control looking to go. Oh shoot! What's the term for one-on-one?
Is there even a term? So just say that this is search and rescue, and you need to talk to medical.
Yeah, is that, or sometimes I've heard direct, which is why I use that.
Oh, direct. Okay. Net control. This is search and rescue looking to talk directly to medical. Over.
Search and rescue. This is net control. Go ahead and go direct to medical.
Search medical. This is search and rescue. Have a message for there is a incoming injured person with a yellow tag. Over.
Search and rescue, medical. Say again. Over.
Medical. This is search and rescue. We have a message. There is an incoming injured person with a yellow tag coming. Over.
Search and medical. Roger, yellow tag incoming.
Search and rescue clear. Back to net.
And I probably should have explained what a yellow tag is. That is a cert and search and rescue thing. That basically describes a person who's not in great shape. So that's if you ever end up working on like an EMS or search and rescue or cert type operation, they have different tags and their colors. So you'll see that come up. All right, last one. Let's say, Bob, do you want to be aid station, and Evan, you be command?
Sure.
Great.
Net control. This is aid station. Request permission to go direct with command.
Aid station. This is net control. You are clear to go direct to command.
Thank you. Command. This is aid station. How do you copy?
Aid station. This is command. I can hear you loud and clear. Over.
Roger. Command, aid station needs more Gatorade and snacks desperately. Over.
Confirm. Aid station needs more Gatorades and snacks. We will get right on that. Over.
Roger. Thank you very much. Back to net control from aid station and to KGO.
All right. So thank you guys for playing along with my little game. So any other?
Especially since we're being recorded for it too.
Exactly. I'm going to put this on the internet. So I don't know, guys. Any other thoughts or comments on our very quick and dirty exercise?
I would just comment that you do still have to identify every 10 minutes with your real call sign, even if you're using tactical call signs. So typically, when you're done with your message, you don't have to go through the whole who you're talking to, who you're talking from, but you have to identify at least yourself. So when you're done, you probably want to throw your call sign in at the end of your message.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a great point. I should have. I think I had the tactical slide in here, and then I pulled it out. So that's a great point. That if you're on, I mean, obviously, if you're on FRS, you don't have to do that. But if you're on amateur, you still have to identify with your amateur station.
Otherwise, it's a tactical error.
Oh no, you're banned. So yeah, but one of the things that the tactical call signs are useful for kind of keeping people straight, right? You don't have to remember. I have Phil's call sign memorized at this point, but I don't have to remember that I want to talk to KC3HMY. I remember that I need to talk to aid station number 1, and then for identification purposes, you're just throwing your call sign at the end, but you're directing your traffic to their tactical call sign.
Not to mention Phil may be taking a break, and there may be somebody else actually taking on that role. So it's not. I mean, we're hands. We probably memorize each other's call signs relatively easily, but better to identify the function than the person.
Yeah, great.
Also,
point.
if there's missing Gatorade and snacks, it's likely because I took a break.
All right. Oh, okay. So that was all I had on here. So I guess and I did it in half an hour too. That was 10 minutes more than the last time I did a presentation. So I don't know, any other follow-up comments, questions, or thoughts, or what you think I need to do next for training modules?
I have questions, but they're of a timely nature, so I don't know if you want to stop your recording.
Does anybody have any questions related to the presentation before I stop recording?
I do not.
Nope.
All right.